Naden, part two of our first conversation. I think I needed more time with Liam to really dive into. We dove deep and give you a little background for those who may not have listened to the first podcast. We dove deep into the aspects of the brain and the things you could do to really help you believe in yourself, to overcome fear, kind of push that aside, and that's I'm getting quick and dirty here of it, but when we started to dive into the end, which I think is really exciting and interesting, is a conversation about the brain and faith and leadership, and kind of how all those things tie together. And I want to reintroduce Liam Naden because he is just an expert and a guru on here. And he really understands this topic. He's studied it for so many years. I was fascinated with our first interview. Welcome, Liam, back to the podcast.
Thanks, Dave. It's really great to be here. Thank you very much for having me back.
I'm excited to dive into these things with you. It's the brain is such an interesting organ that I didn't think we could do it justice in just one. It could probably take 5 podcasts, but it could probably take 50 podcasts.
Yeah.
But I wanted to dive in more about what we just kind of touched base in the end in the religious aspect and the Bible, and what's some of those stories that are told in the Bible, and how it's ingrained in what we do in our brain, and how your faith rolls into all of that. Can you dive a little bit into that?
Sure. Well, as I think I mentioned in the last time we talked, not only is the brain the most incredibly powerful thing that exists in the world, in the known universe, but it's designed to make us the best that we can be, so that we survive and thrive, which is the reason we're here biologically, is to survive and thrive, and so obviously be the best we can be. And the brain is the tool that we've been given to make sure we do that. But no one's ever really taught us how to use our brain. And when I started to really understand this and understand how the brain works, and come up with a model that I've come up with for how all the different parts work together to actually ensure that you are the best that you can be and live to your best, you survive and thrive to the best. One thing that really surprised me or fascinated me was I thought, this is all in the Bible. All the instructions on how to use our brain are actually in the Bible. And but I thought, but no one's ever really looked at it in this way. Well, not that I knew of. And I was brought up a Christian for the first 20-something years of my life. I was a very devout Christian, and I studied the Bible, and I prayed, and I did all of those things. But I wasn't really getting the results I wanted. And I realized that we've never really been explained, even though the Bible is very clear about how to use our brain, we've never made that connection and thought, that is the way there's a scientific reason, if you like, why we should do what the Bible says. So that's when you start to look into the Bible, the first thing you see, one of the first things you see, one of the main messages in the Bible, is you have to have faith. You have to not be afraid. If it says that more than 300 times, do not be afraid. And you might recall from our last session the way we talked about how it works, is that the brain doesn't operate right when you're afraid. It's literally not operating at its peak, because when you're feeling fear, your brain is operating using something called the sympathetic nervous system, which literally shuts down all of your problem-solving ability, your imagination, your creativity, the resourcefulness of your thinking, your awareness of what life really is and who you really are. All that is blocked off and shut down because your brain is saying, I've got to forget about all of that stuff and deal with an immediate threat to my survival. And that's why you feel fear, because your brain thinks there's a danger in front of it that it has to deal with. And it doesn't use your creativity to deal with immediate danger.
Tell me, we talked a little bit about the stories in the Bible, and I had brought up David. I had brought up, overcoming his fear, and Daniel going into the lions. And tell me some stories that relate to what you do and how you explain those things to people and overcoming that fear to be able to create that creativity from within the Bible. What are some of the things that you hone in on from the Bible that really helps tell it to other people?
Right. Well, I've actually got some written down here from the Bible, so if you don't, you'll forgive me if I look away and quote directly because I don't want to get the wording wrong. But Jesus in Matthew says, "Therefore I tell you, do not be anxious about your life, what you will eat and what you will drink, nor about your body, what you will put on. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothing? Look at the birds of the air. They neither sow nor reap nor gather into barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not of more value than they? And which of you, by being anxious, can add a single hour to his span of life? And why are you anxious about clothing? Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin. Yet I tell you, even Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. So if God so clothes the grass of the field, which today is alive and tomorrow is thrown into the oven, will he not much more clothe you, O you of little faith? Therefore do not be anxious, saying, what shall we eat? For the Gentiles seek all these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you need them all." And here's the second important part of this. This is from Matthew. "But seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all of these things will be added to you." Now, the really interesting thing about that, and it's obviously something that as a Christian you really believe in, but when you really understand what Jesus is saying in that, what he's saying about give no thought for tomorrow, be not anxious, he's saying don't be afraid. In other words, what he's saying is the part of your brain that operates your life can't operate from fear. It's the faith part, if you like. I talked about it this last time. It's the creative part of your brain. It's physically located in a couple of different areas, and this is the way we're supposed to live, without fear, by letting this part of the brain operate. But it can only do that, as I say, when we don't feel fear. And so that's what Jesus is saying there. Don't worry about the future. Don't worry about tomorrow.
I think this is the hardest thing for people to understand, I guess, and this was always the rub that could the Bible have given all the clues to you on how to use your brain properly? And I think yes is the answer. I mean, right, that passage right there is the answer, and as one of the answers. And I think, why do people have a hard time? And I guess some of this has to do with whether people are Christian or not. But why do people have a hard time with understanding that they can gain that information that's already been put before them in a book like the Bible to really help them with their daily lives and overcoming that fear?
Well, I think the basic problem, and this is really my mission now with people, is to help them understand who they are and how they work. Because if you don't realize, it's a little bit like with are you getting a lot of echo, by the way? I'm getting
a little bit of echo, but I'm getting static from your side. Maybe try now and see if it's a little.
Okay, is that any better? I'm still getting echo.
I feel like it's the mic, maybe, or maybe move. I don't know if it's the connected part. I don't have an echo on my side. Maybe unplug, plug back in. No.
Okay, so it's the recording's okay.
Yeah, the recording is okay. Yes.
Okay. I'll carry on. I won't
plug in your mic and maybe plug your mic in and out just one time. You know what I mean? Your headset. So
okay.
maybe that'll clear it up.
Is it any better? That's better. Oh, it's not really. Never mind.
No, it's down a little bit. I don't know why. Yeah, I mean, I hear it clearly on my end, and
okay.
So I don't know what the.
Well, that's fine. If you're happy for me to carry on.
Yeah, go ahead. Let me see if I fix something here. If this takes it away, did that take it away?
No.
Okay. You can carry on.
Okay. But the point I'm really making is the problem with faith, if you like, is it's a lot easier when you understand something. It's a little bit like, and I use the analogy a lot with a motor car. Now, when you see a motor car and you get into it, you know that it's a machine that has a specific purpose, and that if you drive it the right way, it's going to get you from point A to point B easily, comfortably, enjoyably, because you understand how that car works. Now, you might not know all the intricacies of everything that's in the engine, but you know that when you turn the engine on and the wheels turn and you press the right buttons, that's its job. It's going to do that. It's designed to do that. So you don't need to have any faith. You don't need to worry about it. I mean, you don't get out every 5 seconds, stop the car and get out and check that the wheels are still right and the engine's still running, and you don't look out the window every 5 seconds and you're not stressed and worried that you're going to get to where you want to go. It's totally predictable. But to get to that point, you need to understand that that's what a car is and that's what it's designed to do. And you need to understand how it works. You know, you need to put the right fuel in. You need to take the handbrake off. You need to put the accelerator into gear and press the accelerator, and you need to steer it. So because you understand all those things, you can relax and allow it to do its job. And this, I think, is the problem, if you like, and I certainly found this as well before I understood this, was I wanted it to work and I wanted to believe it, but because I didn't understand mechanically that is how it worked, I had a hard time believing it. And when you have a hard time believing it, what you actually do, of course, is you go into fear, stress, and you shut down you stop it working properly, because it doesn't work properly when you feel fear and stress. So this is what I'm really committed to now, is helping people understand how your brain, how the machine is designed to work. And another example, you know, people understand about their physical body that if you put bad stuff in, it's not going to be good for you. You're going to have a problem. So if someone gives you a glass of hydrochloric acid and says, drink this, you're not going to do it. And someone says, well, I'll give you $1 million, $10 million. You go, no, I know how it works. I know what's going to happen. I know the effect it's going to have on me. So there's no way I'm going to use my body the wrong way by putting the wrong stuff in. So I think the beauty with the Bible, it does explain it, but it doesn't explain why this works so clearly. And, you know, maybe if it did, it would make things a bit easier, but it certainly points out exactly the way your brain works. Lost your sound.
It's so interesting that they do that. What can leaders do to form a more congruent understanding of how the brain works? And then how could they, you know, when you work with people, how do you explain it to them so they could understand how the faith part runs into it, and how they can relate to it from that standpoint?
Okay, I'm not sure. I can't remember how much we covered in the last time about how your brain is designed and how it works. But there are 4 parts to the brain. Do you remember this? Maybe just a quick refresher for people who might have forgotten. Yeah. So there are 4 parts to your brain. So remember, your brain is a machine. It's designed to work in a specific way, and it has one specific job, and that's to get you to be the best that you can be so that you survive and thrive to the greatest of your ability. That's its job. So the way it operates, it has 4 distinct parts, and they're all in different physical locations. These aren't just ideas. This is backed up by science. There are 4 different parts, and they all have a different function. The first part is and I've simplified it in my model, in my coaching, rather than use all the technical scientific terms. But essentially, there's the thinking brain. This is where your thoughts are gathered. Well, this is really where all the information that you've gathered throughout your life, and you continue to gather in every second of your life through your senses and your thoughts and anything that's coming at you, that's all stored in your thinking brain. It's like a big library. The second part of the brain is the feeling, the emotional brain. And this is the part of your brain that's responsible for making you feel emotions, from, you know, good to the other extreme, from love, gratitude, all of the happiness to fear, anxiety, and worry. The third part of the brain is called the survival brain. That's at the back of your head. And this takes care of all of your survival functions. So it looks after all of the things you don't think about, your breathing, your heart rate, all of your organs working. And it also looks after one other very important part of your survival, which is that reaction to a danger. So when your brain sees there's something coming at you that might harm you or kill you even, it throws the switch into your survival state and activates this fight, flight, freeze response that we're all familiar with. And that's when you react against a danger, or you might run away or shout for help, but you do it all instinctively without thinking. It's not coming from your thinking brain. Now, the fourth part of the brain has only relatively recently been discovered, if you like, or there's been a lot more research in discovering this part of the brain. This is the creative brain. So this has nothing to do with your thoughts, your feelings, or your survival, but it's the part of your brain that really drives your life, because it's where your intuition comes from, your creativity, your big picture thinking, your awareness. It's when you get new ideas that you don't know where they come from. And it also covers things like your motivation. So when you're feeling good, and we know this, when you're feeling good and in control, that's when you are your most motivated to do the right things, to make good decisions. This is all controlled by the creative brain. And this is the part that you're supposed to live like in this state. This is the part that, if you allow it to, will drive your life in a good direction. It'll make sure you make the right decisions. You'll meet the right people. You'll have the right circumstances show up in your life. You won't make the wrong decisions. And you'll have a big picture awareness of who you are, what you really want, what you need, and what you need to do in your life. And everything will go smoothly. But there's only one time when that's not supposed to be, that part of your brain is not supposed to be in control. And that's when you face that immediate danger, when something comes running at you from the jungle, and that's when the survival part kicks in. But what happens when your survival part kicks in is it blocks off all of that creative part of your brain. So you no longer have access to seeing the big picture. You no longer have access to intuition, creativity, imagination, all of those things, because they're of no use to you when a lion is running at you from the jungle. You've got to block all that stuff out and just react. And the problem is with most people is that they're trying to operate their life from that part of their brain. And we know when we're operating from that part of our brain, when we feel fear, worry, and anxiety. They are all a sign. When you feel negative emotion, it's all a sign that your brain is saying you've got an immediate danger, and it's blocking your ability to do all those creative things that are actually the right things to do. And this is why people can't solve problems. They spend, and I was like this for years, struggling along, going from one crisis to another, and more stress, and trying to fix things and trying to work it all out and struggle. And you can't do that in a fearful state because you don't have access to the full resources of your brain. So when we understand that, it's just like how your brain works. It's like saying with a car, I'm going to drive it with the handbrake on, and I'm not even going to put it into gear, but I'm going to slam the accelerator down on full. It doesn't matter how hard you try or how motivated you are or how much effort you put in, the car is not going to go anywhere. It's not going to do what it's designed to do because you're using it the wrong way. So this is where really the bottom line, and what I teach mainly, is to show people, and once they understand this, they go, wow, why would I do it any other way? That fear, anxiety, worry, those things are the enemy. If you feel that, you can't create the life you're supposed to live. That's the bottom line. That's using your brain the wrong way. And that's why there's such an emphasis in the Bible on not being afraid. It's not saying, please try not to be afraid. It's saying, do not be afraid. That's it. That's not the way you're designed to work. And when you seek first the kingdom of heaven, what is that? Well, where is the kingdom of heaven? It says in the Bible, the kingdom of heaven is within you. And the kingdom of heaven is your creative brain. It's your connection to the real you, the part of you that is going to create this great life for you that you're supposed to have if you're going to survive and thrive. You're going to have the best life possible. That's the kingdom. That's the kingdom of heaven. And it says, as I just said, read out, seek first the kingdom of heaven, and everything else will be added. Seek first to use your brain in this creative state, which is where the kingdom of heaven is, and everything will work out in your life perfectly. You'll make the right decisions. You'll stop making the wrong decisions. You'll feel motivated about the right things. You'll feel energized, and you'll have a life where you're being your best, which is what you're supposed to do. Simple as that, really.
What is it that people miss along the way in that process? Is it that they have a fear of trusting the Bible? What is it that they miss when they can't understand that, and then they don't tap into the resources of the brain? What is it they miss?
Well, who's ever told us about this stuff? Taught us how important it is. At Luggle, you've got to overcome challenges. You've got to set goals and strive to achieve them. And if you don't achieve them, if you don't achieve the goal that you've set yourself, doesn't matter what it is, if you haven't achieved it, you're a failure and you'll be really unhappy. Now, of course, the problem with all of that is it's all based on this fear and it's all based on the struggle, and none of it actually works, which is why nobody's happy. But we're indoctrinated to think that this is the way you're supposed to live, that life is supposed to be a struggle. But it says in the Bible, just excuse me, just what I've read, life is not meant to be a struggle. You're supposed to be looked after. And if you get out in nature, you know, I live surrounded by nature all the time, and I'm always fascinated. But here's a good thing to do. Just look at a bird. Look at an insect, an ant. There is no struggle. They're not struggling to survive in their natural environment. You know, there's life and death, but nature happens naturally. And they're not sitting down trying to figure out how to solve problems or what they should do, or they don't come up with a goals list. I mean, it's funny, isn't it? It says, give no thought for tomorrow. That doesn't mean sit down and write a goals list. But the problem is we've been told all of these things on the basis of believing that life is a struggle. We're led to believe that life is hard and that there's some virtue in overcoming adversity. Well, you know, I've overcome a lot of adversity in my life. I'm sure you have. Everybody has. But I'm sure if we'd all agree that if we had the choice, there's better ways to live than overcoming adversity. And the lessons you learn, you can learn them in another way, in a better way. And the best way is to learn to trust your brain, learn to trust the way it works, and allow your life to unfold. And that's what it'll do if you're using it the right way. But that faith and trust, I think, really comes from understanding how it works, not just blind hope, you know, which is not faith at all.
Right. How do people gain that trust? What are things they can do to gain that trust?
Well, the first thing is to understand. You know, I wrote in a recent thing to my client list. You know, if we understood the power of our brain, we'd spend most of our time trying to figure out how it works. If we really realized how powerful our brain is, we would go, wow, what am I doing not figuring out how it works? This is the key to everything. So the first thing to do really is to understand your brain. And when you start releasing your fears, I've got a whole coaching program which teaches people about all this stuff, but when you start releasing your fears, you start to get an experience of how life actually works. And you start to get things show up in your life unexpectedly, and you go, you know, good things, not bad things. And you go, wow, how did I meet that person? This is amazing. And the more you do that, the more you start to see that your life is not actually the good parts of your life and the bad parts to a degree. Your life is not actually driven in the way that you think it is. You know, someone once said, life is what happens when you're making other plans.
Right.
But you're not actually, you know, you're sitting down there struggling and trying to make all these things happen, but it's the unexpected things that really shape your life. It might be the person that you meet. Wow, I'm going to marry that person. And you do. Now, you didn't sit down the day before and plan to meet them and write a great description of who they're going to be. So same with a job you might get or a business opportunity. They tend to come out of nowhere. And when you start to trust and use your creative brain in this way, more and more things show up. This is what happened for me. You might recall I lost everything in my mid-40s. I went from a multi-millionaire to being homeless. Right. And then after that, I used my brain. I didn't realize what I was doing. That's why I've been working to figure it out. But I was using my brain in a much more trusting way, and things were showing up in my life. Opportunity would come up to me that I hadn't seen in years and say, "Hi, Liam, what are you doing? Here's an opportunity for you to do something business-wise. Why don't you do that?" And all of these, this is hard to understand or accept when you're in this fear, stressful state, because in your fear, stressful state, your brain is just saying, "Oh, this is a load of rubbish, and I can't give up control, and I have to figure all this out, and I have to fight, and otherwise I might get hurt." That's your brain's limited awareness talking. That's because you're using it the wrong way. That's like driving a car with a cover over the windscreen so you can't see out, and you inch along, and you think, well, this is the way it's supposed to be. But if you take the covers off and then you can see the big picture, go, aha, now I see the way it's supposed to be. Get the drift?
The faith, yeah. I guess, allows you to take action, and that's the key aspect. And then the faith and belief allows you to take action and know that it's already wanted for you from God, and you push away that fear. I think that's a big thing, because people lose that gap from I have faith. Do I really truly have faith and belief in what God wants me to do, in what my brain is capable of, and stops them from taking action, right? So they allow other thoughts to creep in that stop them from taking action of what they actually know should be done.
Yeah, and there's a physical, biological reason for that, because remember that state of fear is called the fight, flight, freeze mechanism. So when you feel fear, because it's a natural physical response, if a lion's running at you, the right response might be to freeze, and to protect yourself. That might be the right response. This is why your brain has built in this tool, if you like, or option to freeze. And what happens when you're afraid and depressed? You freeze. You don't take much action. You take the best action and the most action when you're not afraid. And that's why that's when you're your most productive, and you get the most done, is when you're not afraid. So it's a funny thing. It's another thing that I used to believe, and when I really analyzed it, I realized it isn't true, which is that fear motivates you to get off and take action. Fear doesn't. Fear does the opposite. When you take action is when you let go of the fear. It's when in that instance you say, I've had enough of this, I'm just going to do it. But you actually release the fear. You can't act effectively when you're afraid. And if you do act, you're going to do what I did for many years, kept making mistakes, kept doing the wrong things. Saying, well, I'll get into that relationship and I hope it will work. And I was afraid of it not working. And that's what kept me going. And I do a lot of marriage and relationship coaching still. And people are sometimes in the wrong marriage or relationship because they're too afraid to leave, but and they can't see it, and they're still trying and fighting, but it's just not going to work. They're taking all the wrong actions as a result.
Are there tactics that people can use to overcome that fear? And this is my big final question on it too. Are there any tactics that they can use? Reading the Bible is one, I guess, but what are some tactics they can use to overcome that fear?
I've actually developed a whole coaching program showing the 3 things you need to do. Because this isn't a quick fix, overcoming fear. There are no quick fixes are something that your fear-based brain wants. They want to go, no, what can I do right now that's going to solve all my problems? It never works like that. It's a bit like having a house. You come home one day and there's a crack on the wall and you go, oh, I've got a problem there. Oh, I know what I'll do. I'll go and figure out how to fix the crack. So you go to the hardware store and you get the stuff and you fill it in and you paint it over, and you're great, problem solved. And then you come home the next day and there's 2 cracks in the wall. And you keep trying to fill in the cracks. And pretty soon the house falls down because you've never actually done the real hard work, if you like, once. You're busy fixing all the little cracks, but you're not dealing with what needs to be dealt with, which is the foundations of the house. That's the reason you're getting the cracks. So, but 3 things you can, there's really 3 levels, if you like, and I teach this in my coaching program. The first thing you need to do is start to understand how your brain works. Because when you really start to understand this machine, that's when you go, as I said earlier, this is crazy. I've got to stop feeling fear. Fear is my enemy. Fear is like drinking hydrochloric acid. It's only going to damn me. I am crazy to carry on being afraid. And so when you realize that, that's a very significant step. And that comes from understanding all of this about how the brain works, like any machine. The second level is you say, okay, I've got to stop feeling afraid, except for when, there is something that's really life-threatening. That's when that part of your machine's designed for you to be afraid. No other time. So the second thing you've got to start saying is, what's causing me to feel afraid? And the first thing is what you're putting in. What's coming at you that you're allowing into your brain, if you like? What nutrients or nutrition are you allowing into your brain? And if it's making you feel bad, if it's making you feel fear and anxiety, it's putting you in the wrong state and it's blocking your ability to operate properly and to create your ideal life. So that's really important. And often people aren't aware of what's coming at them that's making them feel afraid. But obvious things are switching what they choose to watch on the television, what the sort of conversations they choose to have with people,
Yep.
the sort of people they choose to associate with. And you've got to say, this is toxicity. Why would you put anything toxic into your system that you knew was going to hamper your life and stop you from being the best you can be? So that's the second thing. And what I do is I help people identify all of the hidden things that they're not aware of that are making them feel bad. Because most people, we just operate on the stress level, and we keep hoping that we can fix something to get us out of stress, but that's not the way it works. So when you're dealing with that and you're stopping adding all the negativity, all the toxicity to your system, then you can do a detox. And I've created a process called neurostate rebalancing, which is about dealing with what's already in there. Because since you were born, you've been fed all of this negative stuff. And what that's done to your brain is it's got it operating in the wrong way. And it's got it being confused between what is a real danger, in other words, the lion running at you or the car veering off course and coming at you over the footpath. That's a real danger. And all of these imaginary dangers, because why you're feeling afraid, it's not because you want to, it's because your brain is telling you there's something to be afraid of. And 99% of the time, there is nothing to be afraid of. You're still here. There's no immediate threat to your survival. You might have problems, but you're not going to be able to deal with those problems in a fearful state. And those problems aren't life-threatening, at least not in the moment. So those are really the 3 levels. Understand how your brain machine works. Stop putting in the bad fuel or the stuff that stops it operating in the right way. And then clearing out the stuff that's already in there that's making you do that.
You got to give your brain a tune-up.
None of it's a quick fix, but it's a lot more than that. Yeah, it's basically strip the engine and
you got to put the right oil in, right? It's just like a car. You got to put the right oil in. You got to put the right. That's part of it. In. Yep. And food.
That's part of it. I mean,
food, faith, what you're eating, what you're believing in. That gives you that ability to confront things every single day. Definitely must change your mindset in the right direction. This has been fantastic once again. Can you tell everybody where they can reach out to you to see more if they want to get your coaching, to find out more information about what you're doing and how they can get in touch with you?
Sure. Well, it's all on my website, which is liamnaden.com. And since we last spoke, I've also got a special gift for your listeners. If they go there, what I have is an audio recording called Solve Your Problem. And uses my neurostate rebalancing technology, and it's called a neuro rebalancing experience. So when you listen to this audio, what it actually does is it switches you from your fear-based brain, where you can't solve your problem, to your creative brain, which can solve the problem. So if you're dealing with an issue or a problem or something you don't know how to fix, listen to this audio. It'll give you access to the part of your brain that will show you what to do to solve the problem. And you'll find yourself doing it as well. So it's just something I've created that's free on the website if people go there.
That's awesome. That's some great value right there. It's all about giving them an opportunity. I really enjoyed, again, you sharing your insight, coming back on. It's fantastic information. For me, as a Christian myself, being able to tie this in with your brain, and I do a lot of stuff with leadership. It is fantastic. Getting rid of your fear, having faith and belief in what you're doing, so you can get your creative brain to go to work. With Liam Naden, thanks so much for coming on the Success for Life podcast. Once again, our part 2, and look forward to talking to you soon.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
All right.